And the latest victim of the Tea Party is South Carolina Congressman Bob Inglis, who lost a Republican run-up just last month after getting hammered in town halls for voting for TARP and knocking down false rumors about death panels. He joins us right now. Congressman Inglis, I want to make sure that everybody knows you're not a rhino. You got about an 85% conservative record. You've got a 5% liberal record, right? You're a conservative, right?
Right. I think it's actually a 93%.
Well, I looked at it a couple years ago.
Yeah,
so you're up to date at 90 what?
93%.
So you're not conservative enough for South Carolina.
I needed that extra 7.
Oh, my God. Well, you told the Associated Press, quote, I think we have a lot of leaders that are following those television and talk radio personalities and not leading us. We've had a little contest here, as you know, waiting for somebody. Well, you're lame duck now, but maybe you count. But we've been waiting for somebody to say, I'm not really a ditto head. I don't really follow Rush Limbaugh's thinking. He's not my leader. Are you ready to be the first?
Well, I tell you,
or are you still going to hold back here?
I don't follow Rush Limbaugh's lead. You know, when I found out I didn't, I was in 6 years and I was out of Congress for 6 years. And I was listening to him one day. He's making fun of people in cars who get high fuel efficiency. And I thought, you know, Rush, that's it. I turned the radio off because it didn't fit with my dad, who's 87 years old. He's my idea conservative. He used to tell us, now, we can let off the gas at the Tarvers, and you coast to our driveway, because he's a conservative.
Well, what happened to Teddy Roosevelt? Wasn't he a great conservative in the Republican Party?
Yeah, absolutely.
Conservationist.
Yeah, and so my thought was, you know, listen, conservatism is saving resources. And what Rush was further making fun of is people driving electric cars with regenerative braking. I'm thinking, if I make the investment to get up a hill with my gas, why wouldn't I want to generate electricity on the way down the hill? I'm a conservative.
Rush, by the way, says a lot of things. He makes fun of anybody who tries to deal with conservation issues, which are traditionally conservative issues. He makes fun of all kinds of things. What do you make of the Glenn Beck, for example, that fellow?
Well, I've had some celebrated disagreements with the man, as you know, and so my view is this. We really need to be talking credible solutions and not about fear. We need not to be scaring people with misinformation. We need to be talking about credible ideas. That's what conservatives are supposed to be doing. That's what, you know, my hero is somebody like Ronald Reagan. Yeah. He led with ideas and believed in America and had an optimistic spirit. I'm not sure that Ronald Reagan could have won in our primary on June the 22nd, frankly.
Well, let's take a look at New Hampshire Republican Senator Judd Gregg. He's a conservative. He's a northerner, but I can tell you, he's a conservative. He's retiring this year, but here he was on Hardball last night talking about his vote for TARP, which got him, well, wait to hear what he has to say. So many people in your party on the far right, I don't mean the conservative mainstream, I mean the far right, are knocking off people like Bob Bennett out in Utah, going after people across the board in your party saying TARP was evil.
Well, they're wrong. They're on the left, you're getting it also, and people saying TARP is evil and the Fed is evil. The simple fact is that TARP did what it was supposed to do.
Well, you know, the last couple of months of the Bush administration, everybody was picking up the paper scared to death, thinking, my God, we might be facing a Great Depression. And the president, to his credit, George W. Bush, acted. He brought in Hank Paulson. They took action, dramatic action. You guys voted for it. Right. And now everybody's afterwards coming back saying you shouldn't have done that. Well, they weren't there when the bridge was falling down.
Right, and weren't hearing the estimates. Really, we were facing a depression rather than a recession. But you know what's interesting is the first $350 billion worth of TARP, the money that went to the banks. Now, the second 350 got into other things, housing and the auto bailouts. But the first 350 is going to be and is being repaid, and taxpayers will probably reap about an 8% profit on it. It's a pretty good investment, really, to save the banking system and then to make 8% profit.
You, sir, strike me as, I hate to use the word, as someone who's well educated. I know you went to UVA Law School. Is that hurting you? No, I'm dead serious about this. Do you get hurt in the Republican Party now for having had a fine education? Do people look askance at you, say, oh, he's an egghead. He's got a good degree from UVA. Is that a problem now? It's better to be a Yahoo?
Well, I mean,
to be really uneducated like Palin, to really be proud of the fact you don't know anything.
There's a sense out there that maybe ignorance is strength. But, you know, ignorance really is not strength.
Where'd that come from?
Because, you know, and here's my view. I'm ignorant of a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I need to know. But if I choose to remain ignorant of those things, that's quite a different matter. So I have a sense of how much I don't know. and I need to find out a lot of information. I think that's what education gives you, is a sense of how much you don't know, and let's go find it out.
Well, what do you make of Palin's, without getting, she seems like, I guess, a nice person as a human being, but the question is, she's selling herself as someone, she calls it common sense, but I think what she's really selling is, I don't read books, I don't read newspapers, Katie Couric, I don't read magazines, I don't need information. I have common conservative sense. What does that mean, to say you know things without having read it or learned anything? What do people know naturally?
I'm concerned about that. I'm even more concerned about misinformation, because as you pointed out in the lead-in, I'm very concerned when people talk about death panels. There are no death panels in that bill. And to talk about death panels and to scare people is not leadership. It's the worst form of leadership. What we really need to be doing is talking credible ideas. We've got credible ideas. We've got people like Paul Ryan, for example, Roadmap for America's Future. We got Jeff Flake, a very credible conservative. We got Jack Kingston, who's got the right kind of spirit. Those folks can lead with ideas. People that want to lead with misinformation and scare people to do things that they would not otherwise do, to cower, that's not an American position. And so what I got in real trouble talking about Glenn Beck is I said, ma'am, if you're afraid, turn him off. Because I was trying to explain, I'm not afraid. I'm an American. Cowering is not a position for Americans to take. We're the people that go to the moon. We're the people who went across the prairies before that. We're the people that launched tiny boats on a great big ocean. That's who Americans are. And we should be able to face these challenges with optimism, the way that my idea of a great president, Ronald Reagan, did, you know, with great optimism. Not with this, it's all gone to pot kind of feeling.
Well, that fear that led people to, like Rick Perry of Texas, to talk about secession, those old scare terms about race. I mean, race is always an issue in America, but to go back and rip that scab off, what's that about? Why are people doing that? Is it their fear of change, or is it just anger, or what?
Yeah, well, I think that we're finding out here that in 2010 we have not fought the fight against the sin of racism and won. We're still in it. We're still dealing with that problem. We always will be. But we need to extend grace to one another and have some honesty about it. Understand that we are different, but let's find a way to extend grace and get through it. And that's rather than wamp up those fears and drive with misinformation reactions against people because of their party or their ethnicity. That's a real problem. And
how do you figure your state out? It's pretty conservative, obviously. It's Strom Thurmond country in many ways, and it has people like the Mint pretty far over, and then people like Lindsey Graham are sort of regular conservatives. But then you nominated, your party has nominated an Indian-American woman, and Nikki Haley, obviously an attractive candidate. She knows how to present herself, obviously. But what's that about? Is that just an interesting little aspect? It's okay to be Indian-American, but we got a problem with this black president. What's that about?
Well, it is interesting. But first of all, I got to tell you, I agree completely that Lindsey Graham is a regular conservative, as you just said. Now, a lot of people see him not as that, but really, he's talking things that are regular conservatism, the kind that Carol Campbell, our great governor from South Carolina, that's the kind of person we're looking for. But the challenge right now in South Carolina, like a lot of places, is there's a real reaction against anybody that's an establishment figure or talking about these institutions and trying to build them up. If you build up the institution of the Congress, for example, and say, listen, don't just attack the Constitution, because when you're attacking the Congress, you're attacking the Constitution. But so people come along, they're running for governor or whatever, and they attack the institutions. Right now, it's popular. It works.
Well, I worked on the Hill for years. You remind me of one of the really good Congress people up there. In both parties. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks for coming on. Congressman Bob Inglis. Up next.